I'm Deborah Borchard with the Green Market Report, and joining me now is Tim Schlidt from Palo Santo. Your company is unique in that you are identifying various psychedelic companies to invest in.
That's correct.
It's super, I don't want to say trendy, but it's definitely very much an emerging market. There's a lot of good companies, there are a lot of crappy companies. So
I would agree with that, yeah. We have a narrow funnel at Palo Santo. So.
You know, there are a lot of people that are just jumping in because they don't want to miss out. They want to be in the latest big thing. How are you able to differentiate between the good and the bad?
Yeah, so first off on that point, I think we're at that part in the cycle where kind of a macro bet on this space probably isn't going to work. So kind of that spray and pray approach or people trying to jump in on the hype, I think we're past that point. So I think having a selective approach is really, really important. And what's unique about this space is it's a lot of biotech. It's very different from cannabis in a lot of ways that I'd say most of the deal flow we're seeing 80% or so is biotech companies. And the way you vet those companies is very, very different from CPG or brick and mortar or any of the types of businesses, MSOs, all that you saw in cannabis. So, I mean, what we're really looking for is team is a big factor. I mean, backgrounds, I love it if you had a great psychedelic experience, but if you haven't done biotech, you haven't filed an IND or an NDA with the FDA, you probably don't have the expertise to advance a drug through the clinic and actually successfully commercialize it. So we do want strong resumes, strong pedigrees around that. And then science is the other big component as well. And especially for a lot of these, it's a lot of preclinical type drugs. So you're running what are called assays on these. So whether it's human cell tissue lines, whether it's animal models, there's a lot of different types of micro studies in a way you can do to get a sense of, is this going to be a good drug once it gets into humans? Because the clinical pipeline is very, very narrow. From preclinical to successful commercialization, it's only like 8% of drugs, and 5% for more mental health oriented, we call it CNS drugs, make it from preclin to commercial. So I'll pause there.
Well, you know, and then with cannabis investors, they could kind of expect to get a turnaround fairly quickly. And I think that a lot of these people that were investing in these companies were starting to feel like, you know, I'm going to be in it for a year or two and then I'm going to get out and exit. But with these companies, it's a much longer calendar. You're looking at, what, 3 to 5 years at least before getting out?
Yes, at least. So, well, I think the irony with cannabis is people got out before revenue was even generated with some of these companies. So you saw that a lot in Canadian public markets. And there was a little bit of that trend in psychedelics. I think that certainly imploded in some ways. I mean, small pharma, their debut did not go well on Canadian exchanges. So again, kind of this hype cycle we talked about, I don't think that's panning out nearly as well. But to your point, to get a drug to market takes about 5 to 8 years from when you start in the clinic all the way through to filing your NDA with the FDA. So it's a long time horizon. One thing I will say about life sciences in general, and this isn't a kind of cannabis bubble or psychedelic bubble capital markets thing, in life sciences in general, once you make it to phase 2 of clinical development, there's usually a lot of precedent to go public. So at least 3 to 4 years after entering an investment, let's say you're late preclinical, like your pre-IND phase, you'll probably be 3 to 5 years before your company could go public if they're in phase 2. Encompass Pathways did that. Atai Life Sciences did that. NASDAQ listed companies completely above board legally. So there are opportunities to at least monetize your investment at various stages, which certainly de-risks it. But at Palo Santo, we like to hold. I mean, we think this is a 10, 20-year trend. So even after companies go public, we're looking to hold on to them, most likely.
You guys went out to raise money. You were very successful at it. In fact, I believe you were oversubscribed.
We were, yeah.
What are the people that are coming to you and investing, what are they looking for? Are they okay with that time frame, or is it more of a mission for them? They just want to be in the space, or what is their motivation?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. They're definitely okay with the time frame. I mean, we're very upfront that this is a private capital model, so we're gonna, it's a classic VC structure with this, so that's clear up front. And I think our investor base, we've actually gotten a lot of ex-cannabis that I think has looked at psychedelics and went, holy crap, this is biotech. My experience in this domain doesn't translate incredibly well to at least vetting opportunities. There's some analogies around capital markets, but it ends pretty quickly. So a lot of folks have either partnered with us, we share co-invest, those sorts of investors, family offices as well, who are looking for some more diligence capabilities, kind of leaning on our scientific advisory team, us to vet these opportunities. That's been a lot of the base, I think, who's realizing this is going to be a very different model for the foreseeable future in terms of how these advance and the types of businesses you're looking at.
What is your position? What is your biggest position within your portfolio?
Our biggest one is Reset Pharma. They're advancing psilocybin therapy for end-of-life care, palliative care, and their lead asset is around cancer-related depression. I'll say that loosely since it's still under wraps in terms of what the exact indication is. They'll go after, but they're being very creative with the FDA, and we've made this argument that this specific subpopulation makes a ton of sense and is the perfect one for psilocybin, even more so than broader MDD, TRD, where it may be more kind of neurochemical in nature. This is I don't want to call it a disorder, but it's an ailment where it's much more existential in nature. So that's one of our biggest positions, and then Delix is our second biggest position. And they're interesting in that they are using psychedelic scaffolds, but they're actually not psychoactive. So that will be that's a whole other interesting vertical here of kind of taking the trip out of psychedelics in some cases, and can you still get a therapeutic benefit? And we think you can in a lot of ways.
Well, it's certainly end of life is helpful because I know in Canada they have approved that type of treatment.
Yeah.
So if one country has already approved that, it bodes well for other countries.
Well, that too. We think from a regulatory pathway, this is again a subpopulation where if you have a chronic illness or you have a life-threatening illness, regulators are much more open to novel therapies in that case.
Palo Santo raised $35 million in an oversubscribed offering this summer. The company has invested in over 20 psychedelic businesses and supports psychedelic treatment research. I'm Deborah Borchardt reporting for the Green Market Report.